Some men wore tin bowlers, stamped with Salvation Army. Others wore helmets bedecked with feathers, and by March 1880 uniforms had been sort of regularised, particularly for the men. The problem, as always, was the women. Just reading it. Uniformity for women was still unresolved when cadets arrived at the Hackney training home 2 months later. They were wearing an almost indescribable variety of headgear. Thereupon Mrs. Booth chose a bonnet. A bonnet that would be cheap, strong, large enough to protect the heads of the wearers from cold, as well as the brickbats and other missiles. The appearance has not changed very much over the years, and only this week I received at Territorial Headquarters a gift from Gordon that he brought all the way from Liverpool that I'd like to share with you.
We have in here a bonnet. Now what that reading didn't say was, if you look in other history books, it says that when Catherine Booth presented them to the cadets, they refused to wear them because they were too old-fashioned. And we carried on wearing them till the 80s, but never mind. The Salvation Army bonnets. Hands up who's ever wore one. We did. I used to work in trade where they made them, actually, sat in the bonnet workroom making them. I know my first Salvation Army bonnet cost me £65. And the day I got enrolled, I sat on it on the bed and squashed it. Which wasn't a good start. So we have the bonnets here. Anybody want to try one on that has never worn one? Anybody who has never worn one?
We need to see
Would
what
you like
you
to
look
try
like.
one on? Come and have a try on if you've never worn one. You like to try one on here? Here you are. You can try one on.
Do come up the stairs. Ian, it balances perfectly.
You see, if you come up the stairs, what you have to know is there was a fashion.
Put it on.
You see, you first of all started to wear, they were much bigger, weren't they? Much bigger and tied on the side. And you used to wear them on the back of your head like that. And in fact, in the 40s, if you went into the training college, you had to have a bun, didn't you? I can remember my mum had to buy a false one because she had short hair. So she had a false bun to keep her bonnet on. But that's how you wore them, right at the back. Did it go on? I know, kill you, didn't it? And then you got to the 70s and it was sort of bigger hair, wasn't it? Bigger hair. And if you look at a photograph of the Salvation Army, you can always tell what period it is because of the bonnet. Because they got short, they're smaller in the 70s and they got the smaller ribbon. And then it got to the late 70s and 80s and all of a sudden they shot forward like that. Do you remember? And you used to have to put things in your bonnet to keep it on. A curler or a pair of tights. There was always a dreaded moment if you had to take your bonnet off in a meeting and everybody had the bit perched on their heads. Oh, she's got it back. The Salvation Army bonnets. When they were brought into being, they had a good reason for being, because people used to throw things at the Salvation Army and so it was good protection. And in fairness, everybody wore something on their head in those days. Things have changed. Things have changed. I tell you, the last time I wore my Salvation Army bonnet was when I was collecting for self-denial, and I was outside a post office and somebody came up to me and said, "You look lovely in your bonnet." And I said, "Would you wear it?" And she said, "Not on your line." That was the last day I ever wore it, because I wanted something that other people wanted to wear. And so we look back with fond memories, but I suspect actually that it wasn't the bonnet we look back on, it's the people that were under the bonnet that affected us. Parents, grandparents, officers who wore the Salvation Army bonnet, that wore it for the right reason, because they wanted to stand out in the crowd. Please watch the screen. Here is a the lady who certainly did. Thank you so much.
But when you met him as a young girl, I mean, do you remember any of the things he said when the advice he gave you?
Some of them.
Please.
Yes. Well, I do remember one occasion. He was very interested in what we did in the little corps, you might call it, the church, the group to which we belonged, you see. So if he was at home, it was important to tell him how it had been on Sunday. Well, how did you get on? And was there anyone at the penitent form? And did you do anything? And I said that day, yes, Grandpa, I can see the room, you know, him and myself. I sang solo. Oh, he said, how did you get on? Well, I said, well, I did my best. And then he suddenly seemed to be angry with me, he roared at me. He could, you know, he could shout. There are no such things as these, I don't know, where are they with the guys?
The microphone. They're up there.
But I need one.
No, you mustn't get it.
But we had to learn to shout, and he had a splendid voice. And when he got onto the platform, you know, he held himself up and shouted. But he shouted at me that day. You see, I was all in a shiver. He said, "Your best? What's the good of that, Catherine? You'll never be any good to me in the army if that's all you can do." I felt dreadful. And then he suddenly stopped and changed. He said, "You see, dear child, when we believe in God, and God helps us, we can do better than our best." And then he opened up all that idea of God being within reach and understanding how we felt.
I was privileged to be at the Green Hall on the 100th birthday celebration because I was at the International College for Officers and we were there, and the band, the International Staff Band, were on duty, and they played a piece of music which had the chorus Sunshine Corner in it. Do you remember Sunshine Corner? You think? Tell me the words.
Well, I know
This is
it's
Catherine Booth's 100th birthday. She was very offended because it said 199 and this was her 100th birthday. And she got up and she waved her hand and she stopped the band and she said, "It's for people who are 100 as well." Yes, very good. So shall we sing that, Sunshine Corner? Can we do that?
What, can we do that? I don't know.
I'm sure we could do. Yeah, go. Sunshine Corner. The changing of the name of the Christian mission to the Salvation Army was like putting a lighted match to a heap of explosives. Evangelists became captains and lieutenants. Members became soldiers who contributed weekly a cartridge, which is a financial gift, and met early on Sunday mornings for knee drill in a barracks. On acceptance into soldiership, they signed the Articles of War, and when they died, they were promoted to glory. Stations became corps, and today, not much has changed.
We have some very funny terminology. Let us educate you on some. And all these quotes that you will hear are true and have been said at some point in a corps, and I would think a corps not far from where you soldier. You may well have heard some. Have you ever stopped to think about the strange things people say? It happens in the army in a quite distinctive way. Just listen to my story, 'twill make you laugh or cry, to see our well-known army terms so often go awry. I'm in the army, I'm very glad to say. I'm in the army, I cannot stay away. I'm in the army, it's better every day. I'm in the army and I'm saved. Was saved. One Sunday night the army band came marching down our street with flag and drum and tambourine and collecting box complete. They played and prayed and testified, but I don't recall a thing, till someone stepped right forward and shouted from the ring.
If you've got nothing on, come to the army. We'll be outside the Green Lion at 6 o'clock and inside at 6:30.
I'm in the army, I'm very glad to say. I'm in the army, I cannot stay away. I'm in the army, it's better every day. I'm in the army and I'm saved. Well saved. The night I got converted was a glorious night for me. I felt the warmth of comradeship and true sincerity. But still I chuckle inwardly, although the truth was clear, when a veteran came right up to me and whispered in my ear,
Hallelujah, our brother's done it in his seat. Roll the old chariot along, my boy, and put your heart into it.
I'm in the army, I'm very glad to say. I'm in the army, I cannot stay away. I'm in the army, it's better every day. I'm in the army and I'm saved. Well saved. In all the corps activities, I gladly play my part. I thought I'd learnt most everything, but one day got a start. It happened in the open air, it needed some correction, when the treasurer came up to me and said,
It's your turn to take the collection.
Thank you.
I'm in the army, I'm glad to say. I'm in the army, I cannot stay away. I'm in the army, it's better every day. I'm in the army and I'm saved. Well saved. Our CO's talks have often brought a sense of inspiration, but often I have wondered at his bold reiteration. For when he says, now finally, I've learned we're yet to hear.
Just one more word before I take my seat. In conclusion, just one more thought.
I'm in the army, I'm very glad to say. I'm in the army, I cannot stay away. I'm in the army, it's better every day. I'm in the army and I'm saved. Well saved. Announcements are amusing if you care to come and hear. I often smile at the things we say for other folk to hear. We speak of cameos, tots and jam, as if everyone should know. But the worst I think I've ever heard was said by our CO.
You'll find the speaker for next Sunday hanging in the porch. We pray for those who are lying on a bed of sickness.
sure there's many out there who could address those as well. One of the big things about the Salvation Army that has been known is its music.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the argument still goes, you know, Salisbury versus Consett. Now, have you any idea what I'm talking about?
Where the first band? Was it the first
Yes.
band?
Yeah. Was it the Fry family in Salisbury, or was it the band in Consett? And that will continue for a long, long time.
So,
Talking about music, do you have any favourite pieces of music?
well, from way back, I would think my favourite songster piece would be In the Secret of Thy Presence. I just think that is an absolute classic piece. And brass, I would have to say Call of the Righteous by Les Condon. I was really, really fortunate to know Les Condon really well. We used to go on holiday and he used to be there. And he was such a lovely Christian gentleman. And The Call of the Righteous is a great piece to play on E-flat bass. And I used to play E-flat bass, so it's a great piece. I love that piece. But we had some fantastic musicians, didn't we? John Osgood, Eric Paul, George Marshall. I'm related to George Marshall. Well, I'm not. My husband is. Somewhere back.
But reflective glory.
Absolutely, absolutely.
If you ask me about a favourite piece of music, I'd go with Eric Ball.
Right, oh,
So I'd go a long way back, and I'd go with a piece of music called Songs in Exile. And I tell you for why. Because an important moment in my life, the band played Songs in Exile, and it was amazing that through all the cacophony of sound, then comes the trombone solo, playing through it all, I'm the child of a king, I'm the child of a king. And that goes along with my sentiments and my faith, I'm the child of a king. And through Songs in Exile, yeah, I just can't beat that one for myself.
That's one thing about music, isn't it? The music that you grow up with becomes very special to you, and the music you make big decisions with. And I think sometimes a lot of the problem today when we don't like sing the modern stuff is that we don't realise that it's actually very special to some of the youngsters that have sung it at summer schools and things. And it's learning to appreciate it all, isn't it? And valuing it all, because we have a wealth. Albert Osborne songs, I just love Albert Osborne songs. So we just got a massive wealth of musical talent, but I think what was more amazing was they did it all for nothing. You know, they never got paid for writing all that stuff, and they could have made a lot of money with the talent we had, but they gave it all to the glory of God. So which comes to our band, because we're not paying them anything, are we?
Well, no, they're paying us. But when you talk about music, the Salvation Army music, it's well known, it's renowned. We still hear from so many people who say, I miss the Salvation Army and Carol playing on our street today. And though that may have stopped many years ago in many places, that is still remembered. And the music of the Salvation Army, for many people, hey, it's not Christmas until they hear the band.
I tell you what is happening, which is really encouraging. I was asked to go and sing with Granite City Brass a little while ago, and that's a brass band in Aberdeen. And I went and they asked me to be their soloist, and every piece they played in that concert was Salvation Army. And they all had the lyrics printed in the programme. And it was a tremendous witness to those guys. And I was asked to go into the band practice to explain what a lot of the songs was about. And they played Share My Yoke, Mighty to Save. And what a witness that the Salvation Army music is still having, even if we don't have choir that got bands playing it. Outside bands are playing it, and they're getting the message, which I think William Booth would have been thrilled to bits about, actually. I think he would be really pleased.
So we've got our own band, and Kevin, we're going to listen to the band.
a band or a songsters was your specialing weekends, you know? I think most people, if you've ever been part of a group, could come up with good stories about when they billeted. Do you remember? Sharing beds, going to some very strange places. There was a couple of bands when I was a young girl at Enfield. They went away up north somewhere. You may well know what corps it was. I don't. But they went to a lady's house, and in the bedroom there was a very funny smell on the Saturday night. And Sunday morning, when they woke up, the smell had got stronger and stronger, and it was coming from a wardrobe. So they went downstairs. They didn't like to say anything to her. And when they got to the hall, they said to the officer, look, there's a very, very funny smell coming from this wardrobe. So the officer said, well, I'll deal with it, but you'll need to go back there for your tea. So they went back there for the tea. And the officer went with them and said to, the officer said to her, well, where's Albert? And she said, oh, Captain. She said, I didn't like to let you down. He died on Friday. I put him in the wardrobe. Poor Peter and Norman were never quite the same again. But you used to have great times, didn't you? And you used to have some well-known songs that were always brought out on those occasions. And one of the songs that we're going to bring to you now was called The Army Drum, or the Drummy Drum song. So please welcome our male vocalists as they sing to us The Army Drum.
One day a band of army soldiers were sounding out their drum, 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 drum. As down the street they marched along, as down the street they marched along, and far above the sound of song, the noisy drum set song. Drum, 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 noisy drum set drum. The noisy drum set come. At last they passed two noisy boozers, who forever had some fun, 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 fun. And right into their ranks they went, and right into the ranks they went, and soon into confusion said those soldiers everyone. The soldiers everyone. The soldiers everyone. Upspoken timid little lassie, God bless you when you must come. Such kindness took them by surprise, such kindness took them by surprise. Those boozers stood quite dumb.
I think we need to do this right. Isn't that awful?
Yes. The soldiers crossed the situation and stuck to their like they led them to their little hall, they led them to their little hall, and loudly on their a mighty deed was done, and now we see them saved and happy, their faces never and thousands will come say the same, and thousands walk and say, when first they do the say, goes through the young and dry.